Oh, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental Tire from the AT&T 5G Virtual Studios. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, Matt Doyle, David Goss, Calen Carr. It's the Monday crew for my favorite show of the year. It's the best one. It's the most nonsensical one. It's the one where we basically make everything up we want to make up, and we augment, let's say, the official MLS awards season, because there are holes. Too many holes to count. It's the Continental Tire Awards Show. I repeat, the Continental Tire Awards Show. Shout out to our number one tire brand in heart and in minds. What's up, guys?
You know what's funny about this show is my inclination in this show is to actually do a Weeby where I want to list everything because I want everyone to feel shouted out. Like, great transactions, here's 75. And you've been pretty hard on whittling over the last 3.5 hours of the pre-show meeting that we've done. So I kind of feel lost right now. Like, I want to pull a Weeby, but Weeby's telling me I can't.
Well, self-control is important. And by self-control, I mean Anders just cracked the whip on us multiple times, which he will be doing on this show because there's only so much time in the day. We could go 5 hours on this.
Speaking of lists, can we go through Weeby's favorite, how many times he said it's his favorite show of the year list this year?
Too many honorable mentions to count. We're at, what, like probably 7 or 8 pretty easily after that one, but this is actually the favorite. All those other ones, that was just lip service. Wow. I was just trying to hype up the show in the intro. Anders, hit the buzzer for us real quick, just so people hear it early, so they know it. Yeah, there it is. That's the buzzer. So
when you hear that, 4 minutes. Nothing's happening around you. It's just the podcast you're listening to.
Normally, we would ignore Anders when he gets in the chat or wherever and says, hey, guys, move on. We don't have enough time. This time, we have no choice. When the buzzer sounds, we move to the next category. I believe award season is going to start thick and fast soon, where you have all the traditional ones, the Landon Donovan MVP, Siggy Schmidt Coach of the Year, all that stuff. We voted for that stuff. We'll talk about that stuff. I'm going to write a column with my choices. It's not as fun, not as entertaining as this. On today's show, we're going to have best 11s. We made 4 best 11s. 4. That is Extra Time in a nutshell. So we will guide you through all of those best 11s, all 44 players that we pushed into those, plus all of our debates within the Continental Tire Awards, from American of the Year, Canadian of the Year, Concacaf Player of the Year, the left back or the right back Player of the Year, the Chris Armas D-Mid of the Year. You know, there are so many of them in here. The Level Up Player of the Year. We'll take you through all those, and there are a couple of mailbag categories that you sent in for us. But before we get started, I have to remind everybody, you've seen it in your podcast feed. You know it. We do the live shows after every single one of these Octagon nights. So we did it after Dos Acero again. That was a lot of fun. Shout out to Cesar Hernandez for joining us. I know that was less fun for him than it was for us. We'll see how he feels, or how we feel, I should say, on Tuesday. U.S.-Jamaica, sort of midday in Kingston. So we're going to do Twitter Spaces pregame, as we always do, to do the lineup reaction, and then we'll do it postgame quickly, and then we will do after Mexico-Canada in Edmonton, where the temperatures are quickly becoming legendary. We'll do the live show then on MLS channels. So stay tuned to that. That'll come out as a podcast, and then on Thursday, of course, we're going to preview all of the Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs. You know the schedule at MLSsoccer.com, on the MLS app. You're making your plans. We're going to do Twitter Spaces pregame shows for those, as well as postgame shows on MLS channels. And if you haven't already, get your Audi bracket challenge down on paper. You can chop, you can change, you can switch things up until literally the kick of Red Bull's union. So get that down right now. Just make sure you're locked in on that front. Any notes? Any things you guys want to say? Any
just a note that
feelings that you have before we dive in?
That I'm on the call up tomorrow, which I've been looking forward to for like 3 years. I finally got an invite from Jill and Suze and Chris Galena, the legend. So I'm looking forward to that a lot.
I'm feeling a little bit like Gooch Onyewu here. Where's my invite? Got lost in the mail that's a Instagram joke for those of you in the know. Calen and I were on top of
I know that one.
Okay, good. Yeah, big USMNT dinner that Gooch didn't get the invite to. But I'll talk to those call-up folks. Well, maybe someday. Let's
You're
do
probably
it.
on their 4th best 11, so you'll get the call like in February or March.
Yeah, when it gets real slow for them. Let's start with best 11s, yeah? You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Here is our Extra Time Best 11, not to be confused with the MLS Best 11. This is official only in that the 5 of us, including Anders, have decided that it is.
Because if a player is listening to this and they're going for their bonus, you're not. There is no.
We are not contractual.
You cannot take this anywhere. I mean, maybe you could take it somewhere. But
throw it on the wiki. Throw it on the wiki. It can go on the wiki.
that could yeah.
That's the sort of credibility we're looking for. So,
yeah.
We're
What do you think the
looking
chances
for
are?
Wikipedia level credibility. That's what we're looking for. Yeah.
What do we
there's
think
someone
the
out there
chances
listening.
are? There's a Hungarian outlet that picks us up and says Daniel Shallowy makes Extra Time third best 11.
Oh boy.
bingo. Well, he's not in the third. He's in the first. Let's take it through
Whoa,
it. We start with
spoilers.
our top best 11. Our goalkeeper here is Matt Turner. He's who I voted for in the best 11 as well as goalkeeper of the year. I think maybe if you look at some of the underlying stats, this might be an Andre Blake year, but last year was a Matt Turner year, and Andre Blake got the honors last year, so it feels like now we're just sort of flip-flopping them. Does that seem fair to him?
I mean, yeah, karmically it's fair in terms of soccer. I thought Andre Blake was a little bit better this year, but like it's fine. These two guys are the two best goalkeepers in the league.
And Andre's going to get his due in the second best 11 of our four. Backline goes like this. Left back, DeJuan Jones of the Revs. Center backs, Andreu Fontas of Sporting Kansas City. And Yaimar Gomez Andrade. Over Walker Zimmerman, Aaron Herrera is our right back. Dave, you managed to convince the group to push from Walker to Yaimar. Please explain how you did so.
Yeah, don't word it that way because I don't want Walker to be mad at me.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Just throwing that out there. Yeah, so in talking about center backs this year, I think everyone here voted for Fontas. And so then for secondary center back in this formation, you look at Yaimar, and he started 29 games, played in 33 for the best defense in the league statistically, least goals conceded. And then when you talk about all of the other center backs in this category, he's a better passer than Walker Zimmerman. He's a better defensive player than Fontas in a lot of categories. I think the other people that you'd say in here are Miles Robinson, and I think we talked about Austin Trusty as well. He kind of fits in top two in every category amongst those players, but there's a different player who gets number one. So he's consistently good at everything. And then you just look at he played 7 more games than Walker Zimmerman, 600 more minutes, and was a rock, I think, for a team that finished top 2 in the Western Conference and had a bunch of moving pieces around him. Right, Alex Roldan comes in early. Arriaga's been in and out with national team duty. Shane O'Neal's had to start a bunch of games. Brad Smith's been out for portions of the year. And Yaimar, to me, has been the one central force there. No Stefan Fry for a large portion of the year. And yet Seattle still finishes with only 33 goals conceded over the course of the year. So that's why I pick Yaimar. And it's one of the reasons I think they have a shot at MLS Cup.
If you look at Yaimar's stats, and Fontas and he are sort of, they're not opposites, but they have strengths in different areas. Fontas, just as far as establishing, like dictating possession and rhythm and like starting the process of creating chances from the back line and defending with the ball, that's a very real thing. Fontas is that guy, whereas Yaimar is very much like a presence
classic.
when it comes to
Yeah.
tackles, interceptions,
center back.
blocks, headers won, aerials, etc. Which is not to say Fontas wasn't good defensively. Like he put out a ton of fires on his own in the open field, and he had a lot of rotation beside him as well. But those are our two center backs. Aaron Herrera is the right back. I had him in my best 11. He was the outside back I had, and we'll talk about that more in the left or right back of the year. In the midfield here, João Paulo, easy choice there. Immediate. Carlos Heel, similar. He's our 10 in what amounts to, what do we call this one? A 4-2-3-1, Doyle? Is that what we went with? And you had Anibal Godoy in here, and I think that's the choice we all sort of like rallied around.
Well, this is a difference between the way we do best 11 and the way that the league traditionally does best 11. Like we care about having a team that could play functional soccer. We care about like every position getting covered, and like there were no number 8s. There's almost never just a pure central midfielder on any best 11, but it's
just like outside backs.
just like and so that's what part of
That's why we created those awards.
exactly. and to me, Anibal Godoy, in terms of dictating the tempo of play, progressing the ball upfield, and then a big part of how Nashville attack is switching of play. And his left foot is so good, and he's so underappreciated. He's fantastic. So we needed to have a number 8 on there. I refuse to be like, we'll put João Paulo and like 2 pure number 10s who don't win the ball ever. It's like, no, that's not a functional soccer team. It matters to us to have a functional soccer team. Of the number 8s in the league this year, there were a lot of good ones. I thought Godoy was the best. And he is maybe the biggest or second biggest reason that Nashville have been able to sort of evolve in terms of how they play and how comfortable they are now attacking teams with the ball.
You guys want to hear something fun that I just realized? We put Anibal Godoy in our first team best 11, and we didn't have him in our Concacaf Player of the Year.
Oops.
Oh my God. Galaxy. Wow. Galaxy brain.
We started strong. We're starting strong.
Well, if that's the way we're starting, then we'll just continue with that.
Crazy
Up
story.
top.
Also, didn't we also just to remind us, Godoy played for Nashville a year before they came into MLS too. Is that right?
No.
No, they traded for him.
They traded
pre-expansion
for
draft.
his rights.
But he was on San Jose the year before.
He stayed with San Jose, and it was like, but they knew he wasn't going to stick. It's a very MLS-y situation.
Yeah.
And we have transaction of the year, by the way, where we limited it to just MLS-y transactions. So be prepared for that as well. Up top, Daniel Shalhoub, he gets in. We did have some debate over Johnny Russell over him, but course of the season, Daniel Shalhoub was a choice at left wing. Right wing, speaking of Nashville leveling up, Hani Mukhtar is in our best 11, and then Tati Castellanos is our forward, Calen. And there are some big snubs here. It was a difficult discussion to get to this point.
Yeah, it was a little difficult. For me, Hani Mukhtar, I think you could potentially play him as more of a midfielder in this formation, but based on the way we wanted to set up our team, we thought he would slide in better up top. That sort of takes a little bit of a space away. I mean, it's very difficult for me to have to not have Raul Ruidiaz in. I think he's the best striker in MLS. And so it's very difficult to not have him in our best 11 first team. And I think you could also make a very strong case for Demir, who is, been just so clutch and maybe quietly consistent this year. And even, just especially when you start to look at sort of the value based on his team and what he means to that team. So that's huge. And then, you also have New England, who have got these 200 monsters that are out there. So there's a lot of different options, but you got to go with Tati, Golden Boot winner. And then Hani, for me, was the second vote after Carlos Hill for MVP. And then it came down to Daniel Shalhoub as our last choice. So I think, or I would say probably our third pick on this, and that's also based on formation, position, importance, and where he would fit into this team. So, and he's had a fantastic season, although at the very end, maybe not quite as hot at the end where Johnny Russell really sort of led the line. But that's kind of the logic behind our first team strikers.
So there's the best 11 for you for extra time. Continental Tire best 11: Matt Turner, DeJuan Jones, Andrea Fontas, Yaimar Gomez Andrade, Aaron Herrera, João Paulo, Anibal Godoy, Carlos Hill, Daniel Shalhoub, Hani Mukhtar, Tati Castellanos. Congratulations, boys. Do not go to your team and expect any compensation for these choices. Our second best 11, we switched up the formation, Doyle. Explain that. Why did we change to a 3-5-2?
Because there's been more formational diversity in MLS this year than in any previous year I could remember, going all the way back to 1996. And I think it was Ravi from the Sounders. He ran the numbers on it mid-season, and like the usage of the 3-5-2 was like 11% last year, and it was up 30% this year. So these form like 5 years ago, 95% of games were 4-2-3-1 versus 4-2-3-1, and the other 5% was Sporting KC playing in their 4-3-3. Like that was it, and it's a completely different league now. So it makes sense to me to have best 11s in different formations that reflect the diversity of how the league is now.
And I think just last piece on that is, and then trying to understand the quality and performances. And so, like, one of the names in the second best 11 is Austin Trusty. One of the things he did well this year was his ability to play both left wing back and left center back. So you could argue maybe someone else played center back better or left wing back, but a huge portion of what made him great this year was his flexibility for his team in that style, in that formation. And I think that's where we like this show is we get to respect what those people did versus just the pure who had 10 assists this year.
Right.
Yeah, and it's hard. Look, you can't pigeonhole a guy and be like, well, is Julian Gressel a right back? Is he a right wing back?
Right.
Is he a right mid? He's a right wing back, really, in this league, but he has different elements around him. Teams utilize their players in different ways. Let's respect it. Our goalkeeper for our second best 11 is Andre Blake. We teased that. That's a pretty obvious one. He's been incredible this year for the Union. Our left wing back out of Nashville, Daniel Lovitz. Center backs, Austin Trusty, Walker Zimmerman into our second best 11, and Jack Elliott, also of the Union. Then Julian Gressel is our right wing back. In central midfield, Matt Polster of the Revs had a great season. Christian Roldan of Seattle. And then Emmanuel Reynoso is our 10. And we chose him in this case over Georgi Mihailovic, even though Georgi had more assists while Reynoso had more key passes. I'm going to take this one. I just think while Georgi had an incredible season and he helped carry that Montreal team that just almost did sort of the unthinkable, at least to the pundits preseason. They were saying, hey, we could do that from the start. Reynoso, just as a 10, as a player, as a crutch for his team in so many ways, I think is even bigger, and they made the playoffs. He's just more talented. He's a better chance creator. He's better as far as like the goal scoring opportunities that he does get. I just think he's a better player. When you do best 11s, to me, if the production is roughly equal, you go with the better player. And then up top, Calen, you said you had trouble not having Raul in your first. Well, we had him in our second, and we had Damir Kreilach in this team as well. Anything in here that you guys want to focus in on? Anything that's important to you to explain or to call out or to give people props?
I mean, I think it's all pretty clear. Like the only thing is like I damn near had Matt Polster on the first 11 ahead of Godoy, but like Polster really was the D-mid. He really was the number 6 for the Revs this year. He played the same role that João Paulo did. So I felt more comfortable moving him to the second 11. And then Dan Lovitz, he's so underappreciated and so under anywhere outside of Nashville anyway. Nashville fans and obviously the coaching staff love him. He does such a good job of always being available and always getting on the ball in tough spots and solving problems for that team and then creating chances as well. He's one of the best chance creators. So I guess that's it.
And he did it at left back and left wing back.
That's true. And he did it at right wing back as well. There was like a very cool like stretch of games where he was playing as an inverted right wing back, which you don't see a lot, and he was really good there. So credit to him and credit to Gary Smith as well. Nashville did a lot more fun things than I think people realize.
Julian Gressel, by the way, 3rd in the league in assists and 3rd in key passes.
Yeah, he was great.
Just an interesting note as well, too. Trusty and Jack Elliott, former teammates, both making the second best 11 list. And, Jack Elliott, I thought, had a very good season this year. And losing Mark McKenzie going abroad, best 11 player. Philly, second in the East. So, just kind of goes to show obviously some of the value that exists in the depth in certain places, and Colorado obviously has been sort of leaders of that movement, trying to get value within the league.
It also shows an interesting thing so that trade worked out for everyone, right? It made room for Mark McKenzie and Jack Elliott to play. Mark McKenzie gets sold. Philly got a good chunk of allocation for him. It worked out for Austin Trusty to go to Colorado and get minutes, and it worked out for Colorado. And I think that's one of the exciting parts about MLS coming through is like, if a team produces players at one position a lot, it kind of could help everyone if you can go out and find those pieces. And it's an interesting future that hopefully is coming in MLS.
I want to throw a name out that we also talked about in this sort of 3 center back system on the Rapids from the Union, Keegan Rosenberry. That goes in the same line of thinking that you just outlined there, where it was, hey, we see more value in him for us. And for the Union, we see value in the allocation money. Works out for everybody. And for a lot of teams, might not be a bad idea to just look at the Union and be like, hey, who could we pick off from you right now? Third best 11. Extratime's third best 11. We have 4. Maxime Crepeau is our goalkeeper here. Our backline goes like this. Alex Roldan, Sean Nealis of the Red Bulls, Miles Robinson in Atlanta, Kai Wagner, who was our outside back of the year last year, is our left back. Our D-mid is Jack Price. You have Diego Chara in there. Georgie comes in. Georgie Mihailovic. Albert Rusnak was also considered, but Georgie gets it here. And then Johnny Russell gets into the third team. We have a 4-4-2 going, basically to fit the guys that we think deserved it most. And up top, that double-headed monster from the Revs, Gustavo Bo and Adam Buxa. Buxa was a guy, more so than Bo, I would say, that we were really debating pushing into the second team, and in the end we decided Damir and Raul were the better choices there, but an incredible season for Adam Buxa and for Bo in conjunction, when the big question end of the year was whether or not they could play together and be productive together, and turns out they could, and they could also be productive alone as well. But I think we'll get to Georgie and level up, certainly. Jack Price deserves some plaudits here. This might be the last that we see of Jack Price. A lot of rumors about him going back to England, but we shall see on that one. And Sean Nealis is going to be somebody we talk about a whole lot more in this show, particularly when we come back to the Level Up Player of the Year. Anything in here you guys want to discuss, or should we go to our 4th best 11?
To the 4th best, I think.
The Albert Rusnak little pitch was 11 goals, 11 assists. He started 34 games this year. He was locked down, healthy there all the time for an RSL team that was up and down 4th most in key chances created as well. So he's a big part of what helped make Damir Kreilach an MVP candidate this year.
By the way, I think the free agent list is out. We do not have time on this show to talk about it, but I believe Albert Rusnak is one of those players. And the list of free agents this year in MLS, because of the way the collective bargaining went and how those parameters were set, is much larger and much more decorated than in years past. Now, remember, if you re-sign with your current team, you can make more money. But you may have some switching going around here, and I have to imagine the recruitment is getting pretty hot.
If there's an MLS executive who doesn't have Brooks Lennon phone number right now, they're making a mistake.
Ooh.
Brooks Lennon, by the way, in the top 10 of chances created as well. He was in the same sort of like Julian Gressel 3-man backline wingback situation where he could have been in this situation as well. All right, our fourth best 11 done by Doyle because we are MLS nerds. To the core, we couldn't just stick to literally 3 best 11s weren't enough for us. If that is not the Extratime brand in a nutshell, I do not know what is.
He did it so casually too. It was like we were just still talking about 3, and he's like, I just did a 4th.
Yeah, just tossed it down.
Well, he took every name that we were arguing over for the other teams and just put them in a team.
You really did. I mean, I appreciate that.
All right. Take us through your fourth best 11
Carlos
here.
Coronel, second half of the year was fantastic for the Red. I thought he was not good the first half of the year, but the second half of the year he was fantastic for the Red Bulls. So he's a goalkeeper, and then we're going with a back 5. It's Graham Zusi at right wing back, Keegan Rosenberry at center back, Jakob Glesnes at center back, Andrew Farrell, who was a rock for that Revs team at center back, and then Andrew Gutman at left wing back. I thought kind of like Coronel, the second half of the year, he was just one of the best players in the league at his position. Though, granted, he actually played, I think, a little bit more as a center back, kind of in that Rosenberry or even Andy Nahar-esque role. D-mid, Dax McCarty. Just another great season from him. Keaton Parks does not get talked about enough. He's been fantastic for NYCFC, and I think his absence puts a huge dent in their title hopes.
Yeah, shout out to Keaton Parks and best wishes to him. I believe a blood clot in his leg is what's holding him out here, so we hope that process is straightforward and he gets back on the field ASAP.
Yeah, he was a fantastic player to watch, and he was great all year. I mean, mostly as a number 8, but even filling in as a number 6, he was wonderful. Albert Rusnak, as David said, I think there are arguments for other guys, but he certainly had the stats, and he played well down the stretch as RSL were able to push into, he was a different player under Pablo Mastroeni. He was a much better player under Pablo Mastroeni.
Yes, he was. Well, the complaints early in the season was there was no production. Yep.
And
there was no goal and assist production. So to get to double digits in both, after that being the storyline around you, that's pretty incredible.
And finishing among the chance creation leaders, as you've said. And then the forwards, Chicharito, who was one of my favorite players to watch all year whenever he was healthy, and Brian White, just a talismanic second half of the season from him. And similar to Albert Rusnak, where it's like once he got to play for Vanni Sartini, once he got to play under a new coach, it all sort of lined up for him, and he started being one of the best center forwards in the league.
So the snub here on the forward side, as I think about it, Brian White with his 12 goals, and we've talked about him over and over and over on this show because the Caps have been one of the biggest stories in the league. Ola Kamara would have a shout in there to say, hey, what's up, man? I know 9 of the 19 goals he scored and tied for the Golden Boot, but lost it on assists were from the PK spot, but he still scored 19 goals in 1,800 minutes.
Do you want to do a 5th team? I'll do a 5th team right now.
I guess we got to keep it moving. Anders is saying, guys, come on, it's the 4th team. Those are our first, second, third, and 4th best 11s in MLS for 2021. So if you have any thoughts or snubs or we screwed up in whatever way, we always want to hear about that. We'll put them out on Twitter. I believe we're going to make the MLSsoccer.com and MLS app crew write those up as well. So hit us up, 401-206-0MLS, Extratime at MLSsoccer.com. Let's get into the Continental Tire Awards for 2021. How long have we been doing this?
I think it's our 4th
year.
You
guys remember?
3 years.
3rd year?
4 years.
It's been a while now. I gotta say, the memory that stands out to me.
How many kids did we have when we first started doing them? And
I don't think any. I think 0 kids. I want to say maybe. So then that would have meant we would have been doing it. We'd have been started in probably 2017. So 17, 18, 19. This could be 5.
I just want to say that Calen's now in the chat complaining about omissions. So now I'm going to do the 5th team, right?
Calen, you're one of the voters in this.
So it's a 4-3-3.
You were there for the discussion.
All right, so it's Ola Kamara, Dairon Asprilla, and Tejan Buchanan as the front line. Maxi Morales is my number 10.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Who's the D-mid?
Calen's complaining that Tajon's not on one of the 3 or 4 teams that we did name.
Keep it going, Doyle. I'm writing these down right now to get. We'll get 5 best 11s.
We'll come back.
We'll
come back to it at the end of the show. Okay, I have to think about this while we're going through the Continental.
Perfect.
Sean Davis.
Yeah, Sean Davis. That's a
all
good
right.
call.
I've got you. I've got you here. I've got it written down. You can fill that in as we go. Off the rails once again. It's the Continental Tire Awards. It's our favorite time of the year. Now here we go. American of the Year. Jordan Morris is the defending Continental Tire American of the Year in Major League Soccer.
Just
our
to
nominees
understand
are
for future reference, is this is American? Let's say Alex Roldan has the best year, but he plays for El Salvador. Is he available for this?
No, I'm going off of
USMNT available.
We went off of if you. Yeah, that's a good question. It's harder to explain, and now that I'm here, if you are playing for another national team, we sort of routed you into that with the acknowledgement that that nationality isn't black and white, as we've talked about so many times on this show, and I think everybody can understand. I hope that right now Anders is not started the 4-minute timer. So Anders, start the 4-minute timer right now. Anders says it's official FIFA international status, so he has started. Okay, so our 4 nominees, because we're going to the finalists here: Georgie, Matt Turner, Brian White, and Christian Roldan. Our honorable mention, you might think this is crazy, Ricardo Pepi, Daryl DK, and if you wanted to create Greg Berhalter's perfect striker, you could go Ricardo Pepi combined with Jesus Ferreira, but that's a little too far off the rails even for us.
Jesus Ferreira led the league in presses and had, I think, 8 goals and 9 assists. You're welcome.
Bingo. Who's the winner? We chose Matt Turner as our American of the Year for 2021. Doyle, would you like to do the honors explaining why he is the American of the Year in this league?
So, just in terms of the whole body of work this year with club and country, but mostly the Revs played like a 60, 63-point team for most of the year. They ended up with 73 points, and they did that because they won 1 million games by 1 goal. And they did that because they have the best shot stopper I've ever seen in MLS. Like, Turner had a run of 4 games in early October, I want to say, where he was a little bit less than stellar, but still would have been good by any other keep other than Andre Blake, would have been good by any other keeper standards. What he does in terms of never giving up soft goals, never giving up rebounds, and controlling his he does it better than any keeper I've ever seen in this league. So it's as great as those other guys on the list were, and arguably, I think Turner was even better in 2020 than 2021. He deserves it this year, man. Getting from 62, 64 points to being the record-setting Supporter Shield winner, you need special players to do that, and Turner was the most special player in net this year for this team. For any team, I should say.
Can I give a little compliment to someone else on the list? Or
yeah,
is that how we do this?
Wait until the buzzer goes. Say whatever you want.
Okay, so Georgie played 1,400 minutes more than his career high this season, and he had 16 assists for a team that started Sanusi Ibrahim, Bjorn Johnson sometimes, Romel Kyoto when he was in the area if he just happened to stop by, and Mason Toy for a week and a half. So to have those raw numbers is pretty ridiculous for him, but he was the centerpiece of a team that was 30 seconds away from making the playoffs. And that type of pressure to be traded into that situation, to have never really played that role before, and to be able to step up into it at such a high level is massive. And so I hope that next year's another jump for him and he feels like it's possible. But this, I thought, was a good trade, and he ended up so much better than I possibly imagined it would be.
And for him to kind of call some of it, too, I think is pretty impressive. At his age, with his track record, being traded away from the team that signed him as a homegrown, to come into Montreal and sort of assume really a leadership mantle. When you talk about things, when you say things like that publicly, we're you guys are underestimating us. We're going to be so much better than that. When you go back to Chicago and have big games, when you put up the numbers that he did, he sort of rubbed it in people's faces. You didn't believe in me? You didn't think I had this? I always had this. Here it is. So,
and that's why, Georgie, we left you off our first and second team, to inspire you.
Exactly. And there's the buzzer. Good old buzzer. On to the Canadian of the Year. Dane St. Clair was our 2020 winner. hope things go better for our 2021 winner. Dane has lost his job in Minnesota, but he was great last year. Maxime Crépeau is one of the finalists here. Tajon Buchanan, of course, who Calen rightfully sort of he took us to task for forgetting in our best 11s. Mark-Anthony Kaye is here, part of the season with LAFC, part of the season with the first-place team in the West, the Colorado Rapids. Who would have thought that would have been what you said before Colorado and not LAFC? Certainly not me. Alistair Johnson as well of Nashville. And our honorable mentions here, Richie Larea and Brian White, who sings "O Canada" passionately, according to people on Twitter, and should be a nominee for the Canadian of the Year. So you're an honorary nominee for both American and Canadian, Brian. We had our winner as Tajon Buchanan, and Calen, I think you've taken the responsibility here of explaining why he is our Canadian of the Year in MLS for 2021.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare that you're on a show and then you're like, man, this is BS, and then you're like, oh, I'm a part of the problem. You know?
That happens to me every show, Calen, actually.
You just described Extratime. Like, I don't know. That is us. That's what we do here.
The fact that Tajon is, breakout player, or I think Canadian Player of the Year, but I think it's one of the he's one of the breakout stars in MLS this year. Just to go from last year coming to the playoffs, and having, an incredible run, to carrying that run of form and taking it really to the next level, and then the next level again this year to, I think, what was the transfer fee? 10 million? Is that right?
Yeah, something crazy like that. I can't even. It's like feels like ancient history at this point.
Sure, but I mean,
where's Tajon going
from there? And his performances. I know, I think for both of these awards, I think we have factored in a little bit of the international play for the U.S. men's national team and for Canada. And when you look at his performances with Canada, huge goals, a couple big goals, good performances, and just you wonder how somebody's going to carry over that performance in MLS to the international level, and we've clearly seen that his qualities does transfer over. So Tajon, then you also factor in team accomplishments. When he's been at New England, I think he really does give them a completely different look. Yes, they have the two-headed strikers up top and Carlos Hill, but that just sort of dynamic play, and we've seen this in the past with teams like Jordan Morris in Seattle, just having that speed element and that one-on-one ability where you can sort of create something, a moment of magic to beat somebody in the box. And also, I think his finishing this year has really improved, where in years past we'd seen maybe him getting in and around the box and being dangerous, but really taking that next level step to, really stepping on people's throats and putting games away.
The perception with Tajon is a little tough just because he exploded last year, but in the playoffs for 3 games. And so the level he took his game to, but then a lot of that was Olympic qualifying and the Gold Cup. And he's been everywhere this year, but he's been great doing it all, but it hasn't been one straight run through with the Revs. I voted Maxime Crépeau for this.
So did I, yeah.
To point that out there. So we lost that vote. 3-2, clearly. And Maxime, he's a top 3 goalkeeper in this league. When you talk about the Revs winning tight games and getting to the end, that was Vancouver as well. And while Florian Jungwirth was a huge addition and Vanni Sartini changing their shape as well was big, Maxime Crépeau's ability to manage the back line and make huge saves has been massive. And he has now stepped up, and I don't know, he might start against Mexico.
He should. I hope he does, for Canada's sake, man. He's good. He's so good.
And Mark-Anthony Kaye, we sort of explained it here. A big piece of LAFC's success over the years here, but then to go to the Rapids, walk into that starting lineup, and in the end, finish first in the Western Conference. He had a big case to make. But I think
Kaye played at a best 11 caliber once he got to the Rapids, I thought.
Yeah.
It's just he wasn't as good.
Things in LAFC had sort of... Yeah, things at LAFC had... And we saw that across the board with LAFC this year, but things had sort of it wasn't the same. Let's just leave it at that. So Tajon Buchanan, our Canadian Player of the Year for a lot of reasons. I do think that he has, I don't know if fallen off is the right word, but he's a slightly less effective or dynamic right now than he was for large chunks of the season otherwise. And there is the buzzer. But
cut that off.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's it. Nah, we don't need that. Playoff Tajon will be back. It'll be all good. Concacaf Player of the Year, start the clock. Andre Blake was our winner in 2020. Our nominees this year, Andre Blake. Again, among the nominees, Alex Roldan. There for reasons that we discussed above. Andy Nahar, who I think or hope, if he's not the comeback player of the year for Major League Soccer this year, that is a dereliction of duties by the voters. I'll need to see those votes and take some people to task. And Chicharito, is our fourth nominee. Our honorable mentions here: Roma Kyoto and Julian Araujo.
Hannibal Godoy.
But I think the top four. Oh crap! I already forgot. Who would we remove of our top four to put
I
Godoy
would
in?
remove Andy Nahar.
Would it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I love Andy Nahar, but Godoy belongs on this list, and it's a biff from us to miss that. I blame Anders. He didn't say anything.
I do blame Anders, too. That's our check. The checks and balances, man, and that's not our responsibility. Chicharito was our winner, though, and it was not universal. Doyle, I think you had some strong thoughts on this, on sort of the role that he played, both on the field and off the field.
I mean, everything that he did this year felt like it infused this Galaxy team with a level of optimism and togetherness that they haven't had since, the Robbie Keane and Landon Donovan era. And he was just a joy to watch. And obviously, if he had stayed healthy for more than 1,800 minutes, they would have made the playoffs. And that includes, that that decision day choke job that they had. He was still the best player on the field, man. This wasn't like the decision day choke job in 2018 where Zlatan disappeared against Houston. Chicharito showed up, and it was the defense that just fell apart on this game. So LA have a lot of work to do, but when your best player and most important player goes out and plays like that, you have a great foundation. And while you could argue that, Andre Blake had a slightly better year because of availability, and, Hannibal Godoy, we have him on the first team for a reason, and he was fantastic. I just think in terms of what this one particular player meant, it's tough to argue against Chicharito. He was wonderful to watch.
It's also easy to forget, and I admit to sort of forgetting this despite the fact of my non-existent Galaxy shrine over here, that it kind of seemed like his career might be, I don't know if it was over, but it sort of seemed like he was, I don't know, what's the best way to describe it?
The convo coming into the year for all of us was over-under on not that high of a goal number.
Yeah.
The question was, would he be available and relevant, or would he not be in the league? Would he be great and an MVP candidate? I don't even think we got there coming into the year. To your point, Weeby, of where the perception
Didn't I pick him for Golden Boot?
Him.
Didn't I?
But it was a weird draft.
Yeah, but that was the draft, and we were all terrible in that anyway.
I thought when he was healthy, he was the best center forward in the league this year. He really was. That, and that's why you paid it for, you pay for Chicharito, but it was the off the field presence as well was massive for this team. And I feel a little bad for the Galaxy that they didn't make the playoffs I wanted to see Chicharito in the playoffs. It seemed like he was going to be up for it, and it seemed like he was going to sort of tear through the Western Conference a little bit.
A lot of people wanted to see that, but Chicharito, I think
Julian Araujo is also on our list. Did not want to see that, and so hence relay.
Just kidding, Julian. That final
Great
game.
season.
So Chicharito, our Concacaf Player of the Year, congratulations to him. And we didn't get him until the fourth team in our best 11s. That says a lot.
There are a lot of good center
quality.
forwards this year, man. A lot of good center forwards.
Yeah, we didn't have the scoring volume.
Yeah.
But I think we had volume in terms of the total number of really great seasons. Okay, left back or right back of the year, of course, the namesake of this one, but we are walking away from that and just calling it our left back or right back of the year. Kai Wagner was the winner last year for the Supporters' Shield winners. The Union, he is among their honorable mention this year. Among those are Julian Araujo, Graham Zusi, and Brooks Lennon as well. But our finalists are Daniel Lovitz, DeJuan Jones, Aaron Herrera, and Alex Roldan. And Aaron Herrera was our pick. I struggled a lot with my best 11, the traditional one for MLS, the official ballot, because you can only choose 3 defenders. And as we've talked about in our best 11s, that's not reflective of the way that really any team plays soccer in this league or otherwise, generally. Other than maybe, I don't know, you could go one defender for the Quakes on corner kicks, but that,
in fairness, sometimes RSL did it under Pablo.
Yeah.
It's not a total.
Well, and then so it's fitting that Aaron Herrera is our winner for this one. A ton of assists for Herrera, really good season as far as getting in good crossing positions and putting the ball on the money. But then we've talked about him for a long time. He's just sort of he's a terrible player to play against, in the best way for a defender. He's physical, he's good 1v1, he reads plays, he supports players around him. he is just sort of the full package. And there's a reason why for the last year and a half or so, there's been a lot of talk about what he may or may not do as far as the future of his career. We've seen some players go to Serie A and really do well. He seems like a player that could go overseas and do well and not be a guy where you're like, oh, wow, one of the absolute standouts of the league. When you talk about the best players in MLS, you might not mention Aaron Herrera, but in his role, he's absolutely there. And he is our left back or right back of the year.
He also makes perfect sense in this fullback that plays inside in three center backs because of his physicality, his ability to play in the air. And so he's so comfortable in that spot. And he's so clean on the ball that he doesn't mind. He doesn't have to be on an end line or sideline all the time. Like, he's okay when there are players around him in all directions. So he's super dangerous for this RSL team when he does that. And I think Greg Berhalter's made a mistake in not having him in the pool, because I think that flexibility, because he's played left back in his career as well, in any sort of tournament setup is massive. And I also think he's one of those guys, like you mentioned, miserable to play against. I think his game scales really well to like a Concacaf regional competition level, but we do have depth at that position.
Yeah. But you kind of nailed it though with Aaron Herrera. He has played like left back, right wing back, and now right center back. And so we're giving him the fullback of the year award in the 1 year that he's played all over the place. But if you look at the way this RSL team played this year, he was the one guy who I thought was just as good in the 4-2-3-1 under Freddy Juarez as he was in the 3-5-2 under Pablo Mastroeni. And the fact that he was able to shift from fullback, like pure attacking fullback, to like two-way wing back, to then this attacking right center back who gives the strong side fullback space or strong side wing back space, and sometimes overlaps himself, sometimes underlaps. It just speaks to the guy's quality. He's a fun player to watch. He's been a great player this year for RSL. And while there's an argument for DeJuan Jones, who has been so good as an inverted left fullback for this great Revolution team, I am with you, Weeby. Aaron Herrera earned it this year.
Alex Roldan's popping up in a lot of places here. Daniel Lovitz is popping up in a lot of places.
Oh, we should say the Gressel thing, right? Like, we did not consider Julian Gressel for this, even though he's a wingback. Yeah. We considered all the wingbacks for this, but not Julian Gressel because of the way DC plays with Andy Nahar as that attacking right center back in their back five. It's really a back three, and so Gressel plays so much higher than any other wingback. It's a much more attacking position. There's the buzzer. But that's Julian Gressel, we still love you. You're still a fantastic player.
Yeah, it's an incredible player. Chris Armas, D-Mid of the year. Calen, we're going to throw this one to you. Jose Martinez of the Union. A lot of Union folks on this, of course, last year was the 2020 winner. We had Jack Price, Matt Polster, Diego Chara, and then João Paulo as our finalists. Honorable mention with the Dax and Sean Davis. And I think the choice, I think this was our easiest choice, probably.
Yeah.
Are we?
It was just immediate. I didn't even ask the question when we did the pregame. It was like, it's João Paulo. Like, boom. He was an MVP candidate in that position.
Yeah, no, João Paulo. I think Chris would be proud of this list, and you kind of go down it, and there's a lot of I would say pretty good volume of guys that clearly are deserving. But I think out of all of the pieces, it's got to be João Paulo, just because. I mean, you look at his play, his contributions, but then also I think if you really look at what the Seattle team had to kind of go throughout the year as far as missing. We went through the back line and all the missing pieces, the goalkeeper, Rui Diaz was gone at times, which I think he fell down for me to the second team versus being sort of a penciled in or penned in first teamer. And I think João Paulo, it was one of those where you started hearing rumblings of people being like, why is this guy not being talked about more for MVP? And I think luckily now, before the end of the year and before that voting happened, there was enough conversation to say, hey, this guy should be amongst the finalists. And he's got some important goals. The couple that stand out for me, there was the Marshawn Lynch beast mode one, where of course that one's going to stand out. Where he just
shout out to Anders
goes. That shout out to Anders. That was awesome. But
the volley, I believe, happened this year as well.
Volley, yeah, he had goal of the year. So just so many different ways, and then also just dominating the ball. getting them moving in transition, spraying passes, winning tackles, like organizing. And I think also just a lot of the kind of like that sort of spirit and character that you see a lot from like Nico Ladero when he's in the team. Without that, I feel like João Paulo like carried a lot of that burden throughout the season. So yeah.
And carried partners who Josh Atencio making his debut in center mid and huge games, and the teenagers down in Austin and Danny Leyva, but then Christian Roldan moving in and out as his partner.
Yeah.
Like he dealt with a lot of movement and changing pieces, and he was elite, I think, throughout that time. And then you throw in that Nico Ladero, Rui Diaz, and Jordan Morris. There's a stretch where none of them were playing for Seattle, and they continue to be a top 2 team in the Western Conference, and a lot of that goes down to their ability to play through him if they need to, for him to make the right decision, to get out in transition early, or to try and slow the game down. Like, he was phenomenal over the course of the year for them.
Yeah, you just talk about controlling the game, one player having that ability. I think more so than anybody else in the league this year, that guy was João Paulo. I'll never forget the Concacaf Champions League debut that he made, and just thinking, oh my, they got a dog. Like, this dude is going to be a really good player in this league if they can hold on to him. And then you think about what Garth Lagerwey did to have him as a DP and then bring him down, and the roster flexibility there. Just an incredible scouting job by that Sounders organization, and then an incredible job by João Paulo just to fit in immediately, to find a role of leadership and to handle the business on the field. So congratulations to him, the Chris Armas D-Mid of the year. Somehow we didn't even get the buzzer before we move on to the first
That's how obvious
pro.
it was.
Yeah, first-year pro, college player of the year. This one is just as obvious. Daryl DK won it last year. Shout out to Daryl. And Dave, do the honors, man, because you were early on the train.
One isn't that hard. He's like kind of the only dude who really played out of the
Danny
draft.
Pereira
And that was it. But I think when I brought
You going to
this...
announce it? Like, you're supposed to announce it.
Oh, I thought you already said it.
I didn't say the
Jermaine
name,
Brown
yeah.
of the Vancouver
Yeah.
Whitecaps.
There you go.
Jamaican international as well, has gotten call-ups, but not currently getting call-ups, and has played both right back and left back for this team, mainly at right back, though. Started 19 games for Vancouver, and he was one of the few guys where you could kind of see it under Marc Dos Santos. Like, he had already taken over that spot. And remember, Vancouver went out and spent a bunch of money on Bruno Gaspar, coming from Portugal, was going to be a big signing, and Brown just kept him out of the team until later on in the season, where they moved him to left wing back so that Gaspar could come in, and he still looked comfortable there. Like, you knew he was going to come to his right foot, and he could still get there, which shows you the quality that he has. And so he was awesome for them this season, and he was a big piece of the turnaround under Vanni Sartini, and continuing to improve. And he pushed Jake Nerwinski out of that role as well. So it was a strong season for him. I don't think anyone else really is in the convo. We have Daniel Pereira down. I think like Edward Kiza would be third, and the guy played sometimes. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the Jermaine Brown show in this award here. But we also talked about Doyle, more importantly maybe than just naming the first-year college player of the year, is that it should maybe be the second year or the third year. Like, the super draft more and more isn't about necessarily what you do in year one. It's about what you can develop into, what role you find, what club you find that understands where you are going to best fit and then prepares you for a role like that. There are a ton of players in this league that are super draft picks that didn't do it in their first or maybe even their second year, but like Sean Nealis, who again we'll talk about more in a little bit,
Or DeJuan
did it in
Jones.
their third. Yeah, DeJuan Jones. Yeah.
Like,
For
there's
sure.
a lot of guys. The draft still has a ton of value. It's just not, oh, we need a center mid. Who are we going to get in the draft? Right? It's about now taking time to develop those guys, but the Revs are going to start, 5 super draft picks and Matt Turner in a playoff game? Or 6 super draft picks and Matt Turner in a playoff game? And they're the best team in league history.
Yeah.
There'll be some guys from this 2021 list, too, that will emerge and maybe even surpass some of those names that we've mentioned. And, I think of, like, in Houston, Ethan Bartlow, a couple guys where you're like, just based on where the team is at, maybe not getting opportunities. And that's the sort of tricky part about the super draft, is so much of it comes down to fit and where you end up. And so that's the hard part, as opposed to sort of being a part of the academy, and you maybe have a little bit of a leg up of understanding with the infrastructure and the staff, whereas you suddenly sort of land somewhere. It's just kind of a little bit random, or whatever happens in a 5-minute pick. Hopefully you've done your homework and you get the right guy, but it can't always work out maybe in year one. So that's why it takes a little bit of time and sometimes a little bit of a change of scenery.
Teenager of the Year, another buzzer avoided here. Louis Binks was our 2020 Teenager of the Year in MLS. He's now in Serie A, getting some spot starts, I think, for Bologna, and playing pretty well, but was really good for the then Impact last year. Our finalists for this one, actually, I'm going to hit you with our honorable mention first. Kevin Paredes didn't even make it into our top 4 finalists. There was a lot of discussion about that. Josh Atencio was an honorable mention. Cade Cowell didn't make it into the finalists. Neither did Caden Clark. And here we are with our top 4. Mamadou Fall we'll explain that in a second. John Tolkien, George Bello, and then our winner, Ricardo Pepi. And I don't really think that we need to do the Ricardo Pepi, here's why he won side of this, right? Like, I think we'll probably all understand. Like, there were, if it was the Daryl DK Extratime podcast early in the year, like middle of the year, later in the year, turn to the Ricardo Pepi podcast. Let's go through the others here. And let's start with Mamadou Fall, because I think he's the one that a lot of people might be like, wait. Mamadou Fall? Why is he in this top 4 for our Teenager of the Year? Who wants to explain that one?
I mean, there's never been a better teenage center back in MLS. There's never been a better 18-year-old center back in MLS. I think you could argue that Binks last year was better than, as a 19-year-old, was better than Fall was this year as an 18-year-old, but still, it's pretty close. And this guy he's one of the best in the league in the air already, especially on attacking set pieces. And when Eddie Segura went down, it looked like LAFC's season was over. And Fall came in and played well beyond his years in terms of the performances he was able to put out. And they're just, in the big picture, there just haven't been many young center backs in this league who've ever done as well as Mamadou Fall did. Now, LAFC fell short. So it kind of fell under the radar. But this kid looks very much like a special talent. And part of the reason that they were able to stay in the hunt until the last day is because they had an 18-year-old center back step in and play like a veteran. And I don't think a lot of people saw that coming.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he follows that Austin Trusty, Matt Miazga model of he may not play as much over the next 2 years, but I think he'll come out of it a better player in the end. Like, he was thrown in there because LAFC had just no options defensively, and he played well enough to stay in. There's some parts that you want to clean up about his game, and obviously as an 18-year-old, that'll come. But he's really special, and he should be really good. I'm a huge fan of John Tolkien, by the way. I've watched him play since he was an academy kid, and I've talked to a few people in the Red Bull Academy, and he's the closest comparison they've had to Tyler Adams of just being pro-ready mentally and having a skill asset that he has that's borderline world class to sort of build his game around. Tyler's was obviously ground coverage and pressing, and John Tolkien's is his ability on the ball, but he's figuring out, is he a left back? Is he a center mid? Where does he play at his best? And you can put him anywhere and sort of figure it out because he's just elite in possession, and he can play all over the field and be, in different angles and have different players around him because he's so clean on the ball. And I think he's going to be a special player and probably a national team player going forward.
Go check out the interview with him on the call-up. Young Cletus, I will say it till the end of time. We have to make this a thing. We had a big discussion.
Mathis is a striker. It makes no sense.
It's not about the striker. It's about their attitude toward life and the joy that they have just as people expressing themselves. That it hasn't been 4 minutes.
Buzzer? Did I just get that?
I guarantee you it hasn't been 4
definitely
minutes.
been 4
I know
minutes.
it hasn't.
Just say the Gaga Slanina thing so we could cover it and move on.
Yeah, next year's winner we have down as Gaga Slanina or Kevin Paredes or Cade Cowell. We pushed in George Bello, and it was mostly me over Paredes, though I think Paredes is an incredible prospect, just because I thought George Bello's totality of his season was better than Kevin Paredes's, but maybe on the top end. Okay, the buzzers. All right, oh boy. Super Sub of the Year. This is Ilsinho's award from 2020. We have as our finalists here Miguel Berry, Yaroslav Nizgoda, and Anderson Julio, who is the by far and away winner of the Super Sub of the Year. I don't know that we even have to explain this one. If you go look at his game log, if RSL needed to change a game, Anderson Julio came on, and more often than not, he changed the game either with a goal or an assist. He was just so relentlessly direct when he came on. It's a nightmare for defenders who have played 60, 70, 80 minutes.
Also, I thought Pablo did a really good job of changing the way, changing RSL's shape when Anderson Julio came on. And so it just, it's not just about the goals and the assists. It's about changing the way the game was being played out. And like suddenly this defense, who's been dealing with Krylock and Rubio Rubin, or sometimes Bobby Wood, dealing with those two guys, have a completely different type of player, often coming at them from different angles because it's a different formation now, or their build-up patterns are different. So he changed. Like, first of all, good job, Pablo. But second of all, like, Anderson Julio was a game changer. And I don't mean that in the sort of cliche sense. I mean, like, when he came into the game, the way the game played out changed drastically for RSL. And that is the heart of the Ilsinho thing, right? When we named this after Ilsinho, it obviously he put up great numbers and he's a joy to watch, but it was also like everything about how the Union were attacking changed. Everything about where they were creating danger changed. And Anderson Julio did that to a lesser extent, but still a super effective and enjoyable extent, ultimately playing a huge part in RSL making the playoffs.
See, I actually read this wrong. I thought it was like most likely to come off the bench and just get Megs. So I was like, first, I thought my criteria was like, you can't be under 30, right? Like, it can't be named after Ilsinho and then have like some, Kid Cal coming off the bench. Like, you can't do that. So I was like, it's got to be over 30, most likely to get Megs. I was like, okay, who do we got? We got Darwin Quintero. Like, I was thinking
Federico Higuain.
I was about to say, I think that would be started
for highlights, trying to get Megs, and like, really, that's what the game is about. And that's all, not to disrespect Ilsinho, because he was, getting on the end of things and changing games like that too. But that's kind of how I approached this thing. So I think I had it wrong.
That's the over 30 men's league view.
I just can't wait until Lucho Acosta is like 34 now, because like if we're counting Megs, like then we might end up renaming this award after Lucho Acosta, because he's born to play that Ilsinho role.
I think Reynoso led the league in Megs. I'd have to go back and look at those stats, but I'm pretty sure Reynoso led the league in Megs.
He's not coming off the bench anytime soon.
That's true. So, I'm just throwing it out there.
You'll have to wait a decade or so. Shout out to one of our fans, I don't remember who right now, based out of Salt Lake City, who emailed us like in June. And the title was like Anderson Julio, the Mountains version of Ilsinho, or something like that. So he was early adopter. I don't remember your name right now. I apologize for that.
Early on the train. This is my favorite category, the level up player of the year, and we still have in all caps many question marks from last year. How do you define? Because we all define it in different ways, and you can look at different situations and say, well, that counts, but it counts less than others. So here are folks that didn't quite make it. So we had the level up players of the year that have played at the level before and either got back to it or surpassed it. So that's Daniel Shalhoub, for instance. And this is in honor of Ben Bear in a lot of ways, because what his mantra on this. I don't have to repeat it at this point. Daniel Shalhoub had double-digit goals, then he was bad for 2 years, and now he's really good and better than he was before. Brian White, we had in the same level. Not that he was bad, but that he's just sort of been a similar player. Like, Dave, you went back and looked at the stats and said, okay, his numbers this year, I think 12 goals in 1,900 are really good, but he had 6 in 900 last year, and before that with the Red Bulls he did it. So he's kind of just got more opportunity. Georgi Mihailovic, we had him played at this level before, not consistently for Georgie, so maybe it
was Chicago who did him a disservice, right? like, if you look at Georgie's numbers this year, the difference is he got 3,000 minutes this year as opposed to 1,200. So this is more on like Georgie's. The underlying numbers have said Georgie was going to be this good, and credit to him for doing so.
So fulfilling the fee or promise, Buxa, Hani Mukhtar, Tati Castellanos, who have leveled up certainly, but sort of we expected something along these lines from them. Our honorable mentions then were Miguel Berry, Brad Stuver, and Maxime Crepeau. And our finalists here are Alex Roldan, Tejan Buchanan, Sean Nealis, and Dairon Espria. Shout out to Dairon. Regular season Dairon. Playoff Dairon now applies to the entire year, which is a beautiful, beautiful... Oh, we don't know that, actually. We don't know. Maybe good Dairon got used up in the regular season.
You think he sold his soul?
He's going to level up another level.
Oh, my God.
You saw playoff Dairon before. It's going up another level. And look, I ended up losing this one, but I would like to make my case for Dairon.
Do it.
Do it. Ultimately, it didn't end up happening. But if you look through this season, right, 25 starts, and he had 10 goals and 3 assists. So last year, only played 3 matches, but before that, he's never scored more than 2 goals in a season.
He had 7 career goals
since 2015.
He had 7 career goals entering this year.
Yeah.
So he's played over 2,000 minutes, 10 goals, 3 assists. Like, he has been somebody that, not just coming off the bench, and even in his past minutes before, it was more of like a worker, right? Like a guy that was going to apply pressure and, use his work rate and kind of cause problems. But he has been reliable. Without Dairon, this team would not be a playoff team. Portland would not be in the playoffs this year. With the injuries, Sebastian Blanco, with Sebastian Blanco being gone. So he has been like a model of consistency this year, which in the past is not something you would say about Dairon. It was always the opposite of playoffs. So I think this is only going to continue and go up another level because he's feeling good already, and now is his time. It's November. Like, this is now his moment to take it to the next. So if you're not
pulls on the gloves.
Already,
he pulls on the gloves and the long sleeve, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm back, baby." And we haven't talked about Sean Nealis, who is the winner of this award.
Sean Nealis went from being a draft pick who played like 5 games to the centerpiece of statistically the best defense in Major League Soccer. And you want to say Dairon Asprilla is the reason Portland made the playoffs? Look at what Sean Nealis did for the Red Bulls. They didn't score more than a goal the entire 2.5 months that they made their run towards the playoffs. And he was starting at center back alongside Tom Edwards and Andrew Gutman. If I told you that, you would have told me, okay, cool, enjoy watching Red Bull 2. Let us know when you turn on the MLS game later on this year. Like, he was a monster for them. He won everything in the air. His ability to chase into midfield and win things when the 2 wide center backs come behind him was big. He was awesome all year. Also, Tejan, all he did was the playoffs last year. So Tejan should be in here over Dairon Asprilla as well. That was an embarrassing 3 minutes that we just spent on Dairon, but respect to Dairon.
Wow. Dairon, of course, will be in for the entertainer.
I think they called the buzzer for just that Red Bulls 2 comment.
Yeah. just buzzed
Also, Matt Polster, we put him on our second team best 11, and he wasn't even playing soccer for 2 years, so he should be in this convo as well.
Okay. We had the buzzer, though. Our executive of the year was Ernst Tanner in 2020. Our honorable mentions, Olivier Renard from Montreal, Mike Jacobs from Nashville, and Bruce Arena from New England. We didn't push Bruce up into the top 4 because a lot of the key players, not all of them, but a lot of the key players came under previous regimes, and Bruce is also going to be the Siggy Schmidt Coach of the Year. So that goes into sort of like double jeopardy. We want to honor as many people as possible. No, that's not how this should work.
He signed Gustavo Bo and Adam Buxa and Matt Polster.
You just told me we wasted time on Dairon, and you're going with an honorable mention for Bruce, who's been talked about all year.
It shouldn't be an honorable mention.
Mute this man! Anders. Our final 4 were Ernst Tanner, Garth Lagerwey, Axel Schuster, and our winner is Porig Smith, and I will take this one. To finish first in the Western Conference, and you're going to feel like this is deja vu because we've talked about this, but to finish first in the Western Conference, to get a CCL spot without a designated player contribution, and I don't exaggerate that, they did not have a contribution this year from any designated players, to have the lowest payroll in Major League Soccer, not among the lowest, not in the bottom 5, the absolute lowest amount of money spent on player wages, of course, according to the Players Union, and finished first in the Western Conference over the Seattle Sounders, Sporting Kansas City, and Portland Timbers is incredible. If the Revs fall out, if the Revs lose somehow, and the Rapids they will host MLS Cup. They will have the rights to bring MLS Cup to their house. This was a team in 2019 that we mocked endlessly for months. We mocked them.
It was the Rapids way.
They deserved it. Like the Anthony Hudson era, the preseason CCL stuff, the losses piling up, but to have them sort of switch with Connor Casey and then to make the hire of Robin Fraser, which has paid off so much, and then all the intra-MLS transfers that they made, all the moving and shaking and exploiting previously sort of like, oh, you would trade $1 million in allocation within the league. That seems strange when you could go use it on TAM outside or go sign a big-name player. They have sort of created a new path to success. Well, there was always this instance of like, okay, we'll find the inefficiencies, but they've basically exclusively done that. Yeah. And here they are. I think what Porig has done is absolutely incredible, and I did not see it or imagine it 2.5 years ago. Could not have seen it.
And it could have been better, right? We've talked about all the points they dropped from winning positions, all the points they dropped at home. Also, they stuck to their guns or this philosophy in this season. Like, they went and got Mark Anthony Kaye, even though they were already playing well. They sold Sam Vines. They said, this is the model, this is what we do. And then they went and got Estevez, who's actually stepped in and for a first-year player coming from overseas has been successful for them over the course of this season. They went and got Don Badji
Don't forget Don Badji.
Yeah, they went and got Don Badji as well.
And this is a Robin and Porig thing, but like Galvan didn't seem like he was going to be anything as a young DP. He seemed like just sort of one of those anonymous young DPs that get signed and we hype him up initially and then like 2 years later we're like, oh yeah, Brian Galvan. Of the Christian Coleman Inc. or whatever it is.
Can I just throw a little love in here for Ernst Tanner in that they are second in the East and they sold 2 multi-million-dollar young players and they were able to. They have Jack Elliott. The only piece they really brought in was Leon Flock from outside of MLS and Gazdag. Yeah, but Glesnes, they did that work early. Yeah. They knew they were going to sell Mark McKenzie. And they brought him in to be ready to be that center back alongside McKenzie so that when McKenzie left, they had that guy already. Jose Martinez is still one of the best signings in MLS probably history. And Flock looks like he's going to go in the same line. Like, for a team that's churning out young players to go and sign Flock, who's now 20 or 21, and he can be around for a while in any of those midfield roles and left back is pretty impressive.
And Garth is the best executive in the league.
Yeah.
I think
Sorry.
I don't think we have to really explain that one. And then Axel Schuster, we've talked about all of the sign, whether it be Brian White or Gald or Diver Casedo or Dahome or all these guys coming in, Javane, all these guys. I mean, they belong to be there. And then Mike Jacobs is on our mention, and Olivier Renard, we've talked about the transactions with him and Will Moore in this next segment. But, I mean, we were debating, is Nashville one of the top 5 expansion teams of all time? Thank you, Anders. Yes, I see that coming. Transaction of the year after a Weeby list. It's the way things are done on Extra Time. This is by MLS mechanism, we decided. So it has to have some sort of MLS-y element. Georgi Mihailovic is a finalist here. Of course, over $1 million in allocation. Kamal Miller. You got to talk to Austin FC about why they didn't want to draft Kamal Miller and why they would trade him for $225 in allocation or whatever it ended up being. Brian White is here, obviously, $400K in allocation from the Red Bulls to Vancouver midseason. And Michael Barrios and Mark Anthony Kaye, we kind of slapped together in one, but you could go either or. The honorable mentions here were Lucho, which we just
again. Unbelievable.
Okay, / Badji. We had Lucho in here. That was MLS-y in the sense they had to trade for his rights. Leon Flock. We had Andrew Gutman, who's on loan in the league, which is like, you made the Tony Cassio joke in the pre-meeting there, Dave. Only the real ones will understand that one. Will Trapp got thrown in as well, but our winner was Brian White. Doyle, and I'll let you take it away on him.
He helped change the season for Vancouver. And, Gaspard made the point, like, 6 goals in 900 minutes last year, 9 goals in I think 1,400 minutes the year before. So it's not like he's performing, above and beyond what he did for the Red Bulls just in terms of goals and his goal contributions per 90 minutes, we'll say. But in terms of his all over the field impact for this team, his ability to combine not just with Gald but with Dahome, to a lesser extent with Deiber Caicedo. He was a season changer for Vancouver, and they needed him to be, because Lucas Cavallini has not lived up to the price tag and then the DP status at all. And so when you got a guy who was Brian White went for $400,000 in allocation cash. That's a third of what Georgie went for. It's about half of what Mason Toye went for. And both of those were really, really good trades for Montreal. So for White to do what he's done at that number consistently during the stretch run, during the most crucial part of the year. And by the way, Vancouver played the toughest schedule in MLS as they climbed from the bottom of the Western Conference into the playoffs. Yeah, you can't say enough about this transaction, and that's why, I voted for Axel Schuster for Executive of the Year, in part because of this move, he certainly deserves to be in that conversation.
And just to be clear, when you look at numbers now, 250 in allocation is like a throwaway. That's what 50 in allocation used to be like in MLS, and so 400,000. Yeah, the Red Bulls got something for him, but it wasn't like a big time move. It wasn't like an even this guy needs to be a starter move.
Yeah.
And so that's, to me, where you look at the quality of the transaction And then he comes in, and I think Gauld would be a great player no matter what, but he helped unlock him early on and unlock all those other pieces, as Doyle mentioned, that were already on the team. That's where it comes from me. The other big one is Andrew Gutman, of just like, you got a guy on loan in season or inside the league, which is super rare. And he ended up being one of the best left backs. He played left center back for you. He did a ton for the Red Bulls, and I guess it was great for Atlanta because now they could potentially sell George Bello and then have him come in, whatever it is. But that's just a really good move for them.
You mentioned the throwaway numbers. Like 225 is basically an international roster spot at this point. And that was Kamal Miller, a starting level international center back, left-footed.
Oh, my goodness.
Huge.
Like Austin did a lot of stuff right in the roster build. I really think that they got that expansion draft so wrong last year. They got it so wrong. They could have had this guy and just plugged him in there for a decade.
By the way, December 14th, I believe, somewhere in that range, after MLS Cup, that's usually when the expansion draft is, and that'll guide us right out of here. Personality of the year, which is our last official category, was Nedum Onuaha last year. He was an absolutely deserving winner in 2020. Such a giant of a person with so many contributions across many fronts in MLS last year. Really threw his weight around. We had our finalists here as Ricardo Pepi, who, as an 18-year-old, really shouldered a pretty incredible burden, both in sort of public speaking and explaining a decision that mattered to so many people on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico rivalry. And then David Ochoa was one. I mean, who can forget the ball into the stands and the thing with Minnesota and all his trolling of basically everyone involved. And he's just been an absolute brilliant, early stages
his
villain.
Written piece as well too.
Yeah,
Yes, he was in that. Yep, he was in that same place as well. We had Chicharito here, and sort of what the Doyle said earlier, just about his willingness to talk openly about things that usually big-time stars, generational stars, don't open up and talk about. So sort of in the Landon Donovan mold in some ways, Chicharito showing that side of himself and so much emotion he displayed this year, both on the field and off. And then our winner, which I don't think was universal, but our winner was Vanni Sartini. Andiamo. I do not remember a personality coming into Major League Soccer and just sort of taking the league by storm almost immediately. He just makes me so happy in every way, and I think it's pretty much the deal at this point.
First of all, go with everything, but don't be crazy. We need to stay in the game. Against this defense, we can score 2 goals in the last 10 minutes. So we need to stay in the game till the end, because tonight we win. Even if you're down 2-0, andiamo, dai!
Andiamo! Oh, God,
Also,
They scored 3 goals.
That game.
They scored 3 goals.
They scored 3 goals. Yes. And then the press conference afterwards with his whole staff, and he's basically telling everyone, like, look, we're going to get absolutely smacked tonight.
Yeah.
Like, bring the champagne. Like, we've done it. And then the interview we had with him where he's like, hey, I didn't know this was coming. They walked out onto the training field for the U23s and said, in an hour you have a press conference. You're the new head coach. And to have sort of the certainness of self and understanding of who you are and the confidence to come into that situation and just say, F it, man. Like, I'm not going to tone it back. I'm not going to be somebody different than what I am. I'm going to come into this and I'm going to pound tables and yell Andiamo and gather my guys around me and sweat through button-down shirts because I'm so excited. I mean, he just...
Have Will Ferrell out here calling me Mr. Bean on broadcasts, but I don't care.
Vanni Sartini makes Frank Klopas seem sleepy. We're taking it to another level, this guy.
Yeah.
And we interviewed on Decision Day, Pat Onstad on the show, and Pat was talking about his person, how I think they knew each other from maybe the Canadian setup, or
he was the coaching. He was like a coaching coach essentially within U.S. Soccer for the Federation's pro course, I think. So he had a bunch of connections in a lot of different places.
He ran the pro course
Pat
that a lot of MLS coaches ended up taking.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, he talked about his personality, and clearly, Vancouver. We talked about Schuster and some of the decisions they'd made, and I think Marc Dos Santos deserves sort of a hat tip to bringing in some of those types of players as well. But the way that Sartini has connected to this team is real. Like, you can see the response from the players in the locker room and in the results. And we looked at other coaches where, Dallas made a coaching change partway through the year, and the hope was that it was going to get this bounce to get to the playoffs, and that didn't happen. But in Vancouver, that has clearly resonated in the locker room and amongst the players. And then even when you see the way he's brought out his assistant coaches around him for the press conferences and consistently sort of deflected praise or celebrated the people around him as well too, those are generally good signs. And I think things that aren't just he's gotten I think almost all the player personnel decisions and tactics right. But I think there's that other part of it as well, too, where he's really sort of connected in a deeper way with this group that's made them really one of the stories the second half of the year.
Plus, he quotes Antonio Gramsci after games from time to time, which speaks to me on a...
he might still be hungover from decision day. He's gone out pretty hard.
He deserves it.
So,
he absolutely deserves it.
Can I give the, just real quick, Ricardo Pepi argument?
Yep.
Of, like, he has, as a teenager, was the face of the, like, U.S. versus Mexico battle, and I think he has won over everyone on both sides, even with his decision. Like, he is so genuine, endearing, and charming in 2 languages, comfortably and fluently. He's got the entire U.S. behind him. Don't you dare buzz me during Ricardo Pepi. He won us over. We sat down with him for 7 minutes, and we were like, you choose Mexico. We will buy your jersey and support you.
Exactly.
And from everyone I know that's, Mexico fans or Mexican American that watched him in the run up to the Mexico USA game and the interviews he did on 2DN and Univision and all that, they were like, we thought he was going to end interviews with Vamos Mexico. Like the way he genuinely spoke about being a fan of both teams. He's an unbelievable personality. He's an unbelievable person. And he should just be in the running for this award, but I don't know if it matters to him because he'll never hear that it exists.
I just want to say that everyone should take the time to read what he wrote, what David Ochoa wrote, and what Julian Araujo wrote about this decision to choose between the U.S. and Mexico and what it means to them and how it tears them apart. It tears their families apart to a degree. If you're a soccer fan in the United States, and to a lesser extent, but a real extent, Canada, you should, like, Mexican Americans are a huge part of our soccer culture, and it feels like it's something that not everyone understands to the degree that they should, just what it means culturally to have to make this type of choice. And I think it would help the entire soccer culture here if we were all a little bit more aware of it and a little bit more sensitive to it.
I was also encouraged just to hear some of the firsthand accounts from Cincinnati about just a feeling of, like, less of that overt sort of like we hate each other. Like we don't need to hate each other. We truly are measuring ourselves off each other and appreciating what each other brings to this game, and it's a beautiful thing. Bavani Sartini, shout out to you, my man. These are our extra award categories. We only have 2 this year, and we're also at an hour 15. So, normally we would just ignore Anders, but maybe we'll try not to this time around. I just want to do one thing before we get into these extra mailbag categories. I want to read you one headline from MLSsoccer.com right now, just because it made me chuckle as I turned my head. Inter Miami kickstart the offseason by declining all 10 contract options. So there you have a taste of MLS outside the playoffs. Right now, our Nuhu Tolo Entertainer of the Year, the category named by Kanchan, who hits us up all the time. Appreciate you listening and engaging, man. He petitioned to name this award the Nuhu Tolo Entertainer of the Year. We have a lot of names in here. Reynoso's in here, just on the field. I mean, I said the Megs, like he's a magician. Pedro Gallese, he got here for his style of play probably, and then the wave goodbye and the kisses blown to Montreal on decision day. Dairon Asprilla, if you are going to chest a ball down away from the goal and then attempt to bike it and then score, you will always be in our Nuhu Tolo Entertainer of the Year category. Carlos Gil, just for the entirety of the season, the enjoyment of watching him play and manipulate space and players around him to create chances, incredible. Chicharito, as a goal scorer, as a personality. Daryl DK, as just a battering ram of a forward. I had Sebastian Blanco because even though he didn't play a ton, when he does play, incredible. And you also see that smile a lot this year. They're trying to work on a contract extension for him as well. Lucho Acosta, another Megmaster, Andy Nahar, just ripping people up from center back.
We forgot Joaquin Torres in Montreal.
Oh,
one of the best dribblers in the league. One of the most entertaining players.
And we nominated a team for Entertainer of the Year, Calen. What team would that be? It was
it was San Jose, but we said specifically special teams on set pieces. So the fact that they continue to send 10 men forward
in the 40th minute, up 1-0,
even their tight games. That game ended 1-1. So even in their tight games, there's full field breakaways. So that as from an entertainment standpoint, and just as far as, you think of the Nuhu entertainment of the year, as far as those long sprints going forward, San Jose's been sprinting back, back and forth. So I wanted to submit them into the list as well.
It's kind of sad to hear on this year that we name it for Nuhu that he has been slightly less entertaining than in years past based on his role.
But I think if Andy Nahar ripping people up in the back, from a defensive standpoint, that's I feel like if those two saw each other after, they'd dap each other up after the match.
Trade jerseys. I think if Nuhu stays healthy all year, he's in the running for one of our best 11s as well, by the way. And then from the coaching side, of course, Vanni Sartini, entertainer. But Peter Vermees, man, you get him in front of a microphone.
You don't even need to. You just have to have a mic at midfield.
Yeah. You both know what he's going to say, and you also don't know what the heck he's going to say as well. So Peter Vermees, always a show.
I was randomly going through YouTube yesterday, and I was looking at 1994 highlights. I don't know why I was doing this, but Peter Vermees broadcast during the World Cup on ABC, and he was like
after he missed, and was a huge deal that he missed.
There were a number of people like that as well on the broadcast. But anyways, I saw that, I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, Peter Vermees, and I just want to say, I don't think the FU gift or F-off gift will ever. I mean, that's one of the ones that we'll be doing that 30, 40 years.
You could write a book in which you're pretending what the other half of the conversation is and what happened, and just each one's a short story and you just insert his comments back.
It's a writing prompt, David.
Yeah. If his family don't use that GIF on him in the family group chat, that won't be right. That's not right. Last one here, I can't say it. The Tyler O'Brien hit us up. The Spithauser of the Year, and he nominated Henry Kessler for that incredible ball throw way up into the stands, which is incredible. But that we decided was more of nominated for his supporting role in this. But I think we can all agree, Calen Acosta, the Ishauser of the Year.
I think it's Kessler
in Major League Soccer, and we had to
honestly,
think so?
Such a good moment.
If you hit up Willie Whitelaw's Twitter, man, he has so many just iPhone videos of Kessler being really unpleasant to opposing attackers. He's a problem, Henry Kessler. Though obviously, I mean, if you want to go on the bigger stage, what Calen Acosta did for the U.S.
The Concacaf Ishauser of the Year with MLS ties is Calen Acosta. The MLS Ishauser of the Year goes to Henry Kessler, an honor I'm sure that he will truly cherish. That is the Continental Tire Awards for 2021. We've done it.
I got the 5th team.
We put together. Wait,
I got the 5th team.
Give us the 5th team, baby. All right, let's go. Oh, Anders with the board. Anders, woo! All right. What's our fifth best 11?
Best 11. It's a 4-2-3-1. Yarbrough in goal. Back line from right to left is Duncan, Antonio Carlos, Michael Boxall, Ryan Hollingshead, Sean Davis, and Ali Bedoya. And in deep midfield, Maxi Morales is the 10. And then right to left on the front line, we have Dairon, Ola, and Tejan. 5th team.
Wow.
We did it, guys.
Jose Martinez getting screwed. We need a 6th team.
Yeah.
This is garbage.
Who got hosed by 5 best 11s? You let us know. 401-206.
Danny
Musovski. Let's go. Yeah, the Moose of the Year, Danny Musovski in Major League Soccer. Extratime at MLSsoccer.com. This has been one of the most fun shows we've done in a long time. We'll be back on Tuesday night live to do the wrap-up from the Octagon. The U.S. is going to be in Jamaica in Kingston in the middle afternoon. We'll do a Spaces before that on Doyle's handle, I'm guessing, and then a Spaces afterwards on Doyle's handle. If it's not on Doyle's, it'll be on mine. Just look up at the top of your feed.
I knew you were going to bring him out. I was waiting for someone to bring him out.
Yeah, we did.
Get it out of here. Get it out.
Just, empty the tank, man. Empty the tank. And then, of course, on Thursday, we'll be back to preview the Audi 2021 MLS Cup playoffs. We had a little break here, but we'll be back in full force. MLSsoccer.com, the MLS app, is your home for all the news and all the updates around that. Twitter Spaces pregame shows for all the playoff games, as well as postgame shows on MLS channels. And if you don't have your Audi bracket challenge in, go do so now. And, of course, you can change that up until the first whistle of the first playoff game in Chester between the Union and the Red Bulls. That's it for us. Anything to add before we put a bow on this one, guys?
Put a bow on it.
Any names that we didn't say? Nothing? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right,
Javon
that's
Watson.
It. Gavel. Andiamo. On to Tuesday we go. Enjoy your week, everybody. So you made it through and even enjoyed more than an hour of MLS talk with Extra Time driven by Continental Tire. That means that you should go subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to them, and you should also check out more Extra Time on the MLS YouTube channel. If I can point right there, click right there, and subscribe to the MLS channel right here. Have a great day, folks.